Chapter 1. Introduction. Setting sail into the pirate's world. Gentle ocean sounds, distant calls of seabirds, and the rhythmic creaking of wood. In a time long before airplanes soared and trains rumbled across the land, the vast oceans were the highways of the world. And upon those endless blue waters sailed ships of all shapes and sizes, trading vessels, mighty navy fleets, and the most mysterious of all, pirate ships. Tonight, we drift gently into a forgotten age, the golden age of piracy, a time between the 1650s and the 1730s, when pirates ruled the seas with courage, cunning, and a surprising sense of community. These weren't just sword-wielding scoundrels like in the movies. They were sailors and rebels, dreamers and drifters, who found a home not in kingdoms or countries, but aboard creaking ships and under the open sky. Pirates lived in a world both dangerous and free. Their days began with the sun and ended with the stars, and each day brought a new adventure. But unlike the tall tales of buried treasure and parrots on shoulders, real pirates had a different kind of daily life, a rhythm of duties, rituals, and moments of calm amidst the roaring waves. In this story, we won't rush through cannon blasts or stormy chases. No, this is a tale to be savored slowly, like watching the sun melt into the sea or listening to a ship's sail fluttering in the wind. We'll explore, gently and peacefully, what it truly meant to be a pirate. Not just the battles, but the quiet mornings, the codes of honor, and the deep bond between shipmates who called the sea their home. So as you rest your head and close your eyes, imagine the rocking of a wooden deck beneath your feet, the salty breeze on your face, and the sound of waves whispering stories of a time long ago. Tonight, we set sail into the daily life of pirates. Chapter 2. The Pirate's Origin Story. Soft winds sweep across the deck, sails flap gently overhead, and the stars stretch wide across the sky like a compass of silver fire. Before pirates ever raised their black flags or set sail for adventure, they were ordinary people living ordinary lives. People who came from the coasts of England, France, Spain, and even as far away as the Americas and Africa. Their lives began not on the high seas, but on land, in quiet villages, busy ports, and bustling markets. Some were sailors in the Navy, trained to follow orders and fight for their king. They scrubbed decks, fired cannons, and crossed the world's oceans in service of their country. But naval life was hard. Discipline was strict. The pay was poor. And many sailors grew tired of watching their commanders grow rich while they struggled to survive. Others were once honest merchants, men who carried goods from one shore to another. They hauled spices from the east, sugar from the Caribbean, and silks from the Orient. But pirates weren't always born of hardship. Sometimes the temptation of easy wealth, taken by force rather than bought with coin, was enough to lure even a trader to the darker path. Then there were the rebels and runaways, escaped slaves seeking freedom, farmers cast off their land, young men who wanted more than the life they were given. For them, piracy wasn't just a job, it was a chance at freedom, a break from a world of chains and rules and kings who never knew their names. And let's not forget the privateers, legal pirates, hired by governments during wartime to attack enemy ships. They were given permission to plunder in the name of the country and crown. But when the war ended, their licenses were taken away, and many were left with no trade, no title, and no interest in going back to a life of obedience. So they kept sailing, only now without permission. But what truly drove these people, all of them, into the life of piracy? For some, it was poverty. Life ashore was cruel. Hunger was constant. The sea offered a chance, however slim, to fill one's belly and one's pockets. For others, it was the thrill of adventure, the open ocean, the unknown, the wind in the sails, and the freedom to choose one's fate. These were powerful dreams. And while life aboard a pirate ship was not easy, it was free. No kings, no lords, just the sea, the ship, and the crew. Some were driven by rebellion. They hated the rich who ruled them, the captains who beat them, the systems that used them and cast them aside. On a pirate ship, they could vote, speak, earn a fair share, and live by their own code. Even among pirates, there were legends, real people who started just like anyone else. Take Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, a towering figure with a black beard braided into coils and lit fuses behind his ears to frighten enemies. Before he became the most feared pirate in the Caribbean, he was likely a sailor, possibly a privateer during Queen Anne's War. But once the war ended, he took to piracy, commanding a fearsome ship called Queen Anne's Revenge. His reputation was so fearsome, many ships surrendered without a fight. Then there was Anne Bonny, a fiery and fearless woman born in Ireland and raised in the American colonies. She defied every expectation for women of her time. She married a sailor, disguised herself as a man, and joined a pirate crew led by Calico Jack Rackham, and fought, drank, and sailed alongside men, proving that the pirate's life didn't belong to men alone. These were not stories born in fairy tales. These were real lives, full of danger, choices, and dreams. And though the flags they flew may have been black, their hopes were bright, filled with the same longing we all feel: to be free, to be seen, to live on our own terms. So tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine not just pirates with gold and cutlasses, but people, each with a reason to set sail into the unknown. For some, piracy was survival. For others, it was rebellion. But for all, it was the call of the sea. And they answered. Chapter 3, Life Aboard the Pirate Ship. The gentle sway of the sea cradles the ship like a lullaby. Wood groans softly with the tide, and the quiet lapping of waves keeps time with the heartbeat of the ocean. A pirate's home wasn't a cottage on land or a castle made of stone. No, a pirate's world floated on water, built from timber and rope, sails and sweat. Their home was the ship, a floating fortress, a trusted companion, and sometimes a tomb. Most pirate ships weren't massive war galleons or hulking vessels. They favored sloops and schooners, smaller, faster, and easier to handle. These ships could dance through narrow channels, outrun naval frigates, and disappear behind islands like a shadow on the sea. The sloop, in particular, was a favorite. With a single mast and wide sails, it could cut through the waves with surprising speed. Its low deck made it easier to board enemy ships quickly, and its shallow bottom allowed it to sneak close to shore, a perfect choice for ambushes or sudden getaways. A schooner, on the other hand, carried 2 or more masts and was even more agile, ideal for pirates who favored strategy and surprise over brute force. These ships didn't just sail, they glided, with sails puffed full and wood humming beneath the feet of the crew. But space was precious, and every inch of the ship was used. There were no luxury cabins for most aboard a pirate ship, only hammocks, rolled-up blankets, and dark corners below deck. Sleeping arrangements were tight. sometimes side by side, shoulder to shoulder, swaying gently as the ship rocked with the sea. Privacy was a myth, and comfort was a rare visitor. The lower deck, damp and shadowy, was where pirates slept, played dice, told stories, and stored their precious plunder. At night, lanterns flickered in the dark, casting warm light over tired faces and salty boots. Meals were simple and rough: hardtack, a dry, biscuit-like bread, and salted meat, tough and chewy, made up most of the diet. Fresh food spoiled quickly, so pirates prized barrels of pickled vegetables or fruits when they could find them. Sometimes they caught fish and roasted them over makeshift fires. Rum, of course, flowed often, both to celebrate and to forget. As for hygiene, it was as rough as the sea. Baths were rare, soap was scarce, and fresh water was more valuable than gold. Pirates washed in seawater when they could, scraping off grime with sand and rinsing their hands in rainwater collected in barrels. Still, illness was common. The damp ship held smells of sweat, salt, gunpowder, and sometimes blood. Yet, to the pirates, this was simply life. Despite the harsh conditions, there was a shared rhythm, a deep understanding among the crew. They learned to move in harmony, climbing ropes, mending sails, or standing watch together. There were no rich quarters for captains and none for kings. The ship belonged to everyone, and each man or woman aboard knew their role. The main deck bustled during the day with shouting, laughter, and work. But at night, a strange peace settled over it. Only the soft creak of timber, the whisper of canvas above, and the hush of the ocean filled the air. A pirate might lean against the mast, eyes on the stars, wondering what lay beyond the horizon. Others would doze off, hammocks swaying, dreaming of islands, treasure, or home. In such a place, friendships were forged, loyalties tested, and lives woven tightly together. The ship was more than wood and sail. It was a family, carried by the sea and shaped by the wind. So now, as your own eyes begin to grow heavy, imagine the soft roll of the ocean beneath your feet, the faint lantern light casting golden patterns on wooden beams, and the quiet promise of another day at sea. This was life aboard a pirate ship, raw, real, and full of rhythm, a lullaby in motion.
Chapter 4: The Pirate Code and Brotherhood. Lanterns sway with the sea breeze, and the wood of the ship murmurs like a voice from the deep. Somewhere above, the sails sigh under the moonlight, and all is still but for the gentle whisper of the wind. Pirates were not the lawless savages stories often make them out to be. No, aboard a pirate ship, there was order, structure, and even democracy. In a world where kings ruled without question and captains barked orders from above, pirates built something different, a world where every voice mattered. Before a voyage began, the crew would gather in the glow of lanterns to agree on a set of rules known as the Pirate Code. These weren't laws written by noblemen in velvet coats. These were agreements, promises, made by the crew to keep peace, fairness, and discipline alive on the open sea. There were rules for dividing treasure, not by birthright or title, but by effort and risk. The captain, for leading and taking the most danger in battle, received a larger share. The quartermaster, who handled supplies and kept order, received nearly as much. But every crew member, from the youngest lookout to the oldest gunner, received a fair portion. No one was left behind. Punishments were agreed upon as well. Stealing from the crew, abandoning duty, or cowardice in battle could mean harsh consequences, lashes, loss of pay, or even marooning, being left alone on an island with only a bottle of water and a pistol. But these punishments were voted on, not handed down from above. Even the captain could be removed by vote if he lost the trust of the crew. This was pirate democracy, rare and radical in a time when most sailors were beaten, silenced, or enslaved. Aboard a pirate ship, the crew chose their captain, not for his birth, but for his bravery, wisdom, and strength. And just as easily, they could remove him if he grew cruel or careless. Beside the captain stood the quartermaster, second in command, the voice of the crew. While the captain led in battle, the quartermaster led in peace. He settled disputes, guarded plunder, and kept order. Between them, they kept the ship running like a great wooden clock, every gear turning in rhythm. There were other roles too: the boatswain, who kept the rigging in order. The gunner watched over the cannons. The cook turned hardtack and salted pork into warm meals. And the surgeon, who, in times of injury, worked miracles with rum, fire, and thread. But above all, pirates believed in something deeper: brotherhood. They were a family born not of blood, but of shared struggle. They faced storms, hunger, and death together. They fought not just beside each other, but for each other. In a world that often cast them aside, they made their own place, where trust was currency, and loyalty was life. They watched one another's backs. They mourned fallen crewmates like brothers. And when one succeeded, they all shared in the joy. When one failed, the others lifted him up. Their lives depended on it. So when the ship rocked gently at night and the stars shimmered above, these rough sailors, with weathered hands and storm-bitten hearts, found comfort not in gold or glory, but in each other. They told stories, sang songs, and passed around mugs of rum. And in those quiet hours, their laughter became a kind of anchor, something that kept them human amidst the wildness of the sea. The pirate's life was hard. But within it, they carved out a new world, one of freedom, fairness, and fierce loyalty. And now, as the ship sails deeper into the night, let the sound of wind and wood remind you of those who once trusted the sea and each other more than any king or crown. For in their code, and in their brotherhood, they found not just survival, but something very close to home. Chapter 5: Morning Routine at Sea. The sky begins to pale on the horizon. The stars yawn and fade, one by one, as soft waves lap against the hull. A hush of golden light stretches over the sea, and the ship stirs gently, like an old soul waking from slumber. Mornings aboard a pirate ship began not with alarm bells or barking orders but with the quiet rhythm of the sea. Before the sun broke fully over the waves, the first light of dawn kissed the sails, turning them from shadows to gold. The air smelled of salt and wood, and the soft groan of the ship welcomed the day. One by one, the crew awoke. Not with chaos, but with the steady rhythm of practice and duty. The pirate's life may have been wild, but their mornings were a ritual, each action woven into the next like stitches in a sail. The deckhands rose first, their boots tapping lightly against the damp planks. With rags and buckets in hand, they began their work, scrubbing the deck, and washing away the salt, sand, and soot from the day before. The ship had to be clean and seaworthy. Each sweep of the brush was a melody of wood, water, and the whisper of wind. High above, lookouts climbed into the rigging, ascending the swaying masts with practiced grace. From the crow's nest, they watched the horizon, scanning for distant sails, floating wreckage, or changes in the weather. Their eyes, sharp as gulls, were the first warning of danger or opportunity. Below, the sailors checked the rigging, inspecting the ropes, tightening knots, and adjusting the sails. A loose rope or torn canvas could cost lives. And so, with the rising sun warming their backs, they worked together in near silence, broken only by the creak of pulleys and the soft call of instructions between crewmates. Down in the galley, a simple breakfast was prepared. Pirates did not feast, but they filled their bellies for the day ahead. On good days, the meal might include salted fish, a chunk of hardtack softened in hot water, or a bit of dried fruit if they were lucky. Tea or weak beer was common, and sometimes hot broth, bubbling gently in blackened pots, warmed the bones against the morning chill. Some pirates ate in quiet reflection, leaning on crates or sitting in shadowy corners. Others traded stories from the night watch or sang softly as they chewed. Food was shared not just to nourish, but to begin the day in unspoken unity. The captain, if he was wise, joined his crew, not apart from them, but among them. He would walk the deck, speak to his men, check the ship's course, and listen. On a pirate ship, respect was earned not through command alone, but by presence. And as the sun rose higher, casting golden paths across the endless sea, the ship came fully alive. The sails puffed with wind. The helm creaked beneath the helmsman's steady hand. Birds followed in the ship's wake, and the water shimmered with light. Yet even amidst duty, there was stillness, a quiet peace found only in the heart of the ocean. The world felt far away. The sky is endless. And at that moment between night and day, between dreams and duties, pirates stood upon their deck and watched the world begin again. So now, as you lie quietly beneath your own covers, imagine standing barefoot on those weathered boards. The warmth of the rising sun on your skin. The scent of sea and salt in the air. The calls of seabirds overhead and the hush of the ocean all around you. That was morning aboard a pirate ship, not rushed, but ritual. Not loud, but laced with wonder. The day had only just begun. Chapter 6, The Hunt for Treasure. Far across the sea, the wind carries whispers of gold, silk, and spice, of sails on the horizon, of ships heavy with cargo. The ocean stretches out, wide and mysterious, hiding its secrets beneath every wave. For the pirates of old, treasure did not come from excess marked on maps or chests buried in caves. No, treasure moved, gliding across the sea on merchant ships, guarded by men and guns, heading from port to port. To capture it took planning, patience, and the sharp eyes of a crew who knew how to watch the world. Each hunt began not with action, but with whispers. In the quiet corners of harbors and taverns, pirates listened. They heard sailors boasting of rich cargo leaving Havana. Traders speaking too loudly about a Spanish galleon full of gold. A drunk dockhand mumbling about a ship of sugar bound for London. These rumors, gathered in shadows, were worth more than any map. From there, the pirates plotted their course. Around a lantern-lit table, they would unfurl aged maps, edges frayed, ink faded, and trace the known routes of treasure ships. The Spanish Main, the Windward Passage, the Gulf Stream, all pathways that led riches through dangerous waters. The captain, with spyglass in hand, would scan the horizon daily, eyes narrowing against the sun. The crew trusted their instincts, the signs of the sea, the flocks of birds that hinted at land, or the sudden change in tide that meant a ship had passed nearby. They watched for smoke, for sails, for the gleam of polished wood on the water. And when a target appeared, the mood aboard the ship would shift. Quietly, the black flag, the Jolly Roger, might be raised, flapping in the breeze like a shadow come to life. But sometimes, a trick was played first. Pirates would sail under a false flag, pretending to be friendly merchants or naval escorts until they drew close enough to strike. The sloop or schooner, light and swift, would skim over the sea with practiced ease. Every crewmate moved with quiet purpose, adjusting sails, checking weapons, lowering lanterns so the ship became just another shadow. No one shouted. There were no wild cries. Only the silent tension of the hunt, like a string pulled tight. And then, perhaps the ship would change course. Perhaps they would close in. Or perhaps, at the last second, the merchant ship would veer away, vanishing into the mist, the treasure lost, the chase undone. But even that held a kind of beauty. For the hunt itself was more than gold. It was a dance with the sea, an ancient rhythm of patience, risk, and reward. The thrill came not only in seizing treasure, but in seeking it, together, as one crew, one ship, one spirit. On many days, the sea offered nothing, only waves, sky, and wind. Yet the pirates watched, waited, and hoped. Because out there, somewhere, a ship sailed heavy with silver. And it was only a matter of time. So now, as your breath begins to slow and your thoughts float gently like driftwood on the tide, imagine standing at the bow of a quiet pirate ship. The sea before you is endless. The sky is soft with clouds. The sails are full. And far in the distance, just maybe, a shape appears on the horizon. The hunt begins, slowly, silently, and with wonder. Chapter 7, Encounters at Sea. The ocean lies still for a moment, holding its breath. The ship rocks gently, its sails whispering overhead. And far across the waves, another silhouette drifts into view, a ship, alone and gliding slowly beneath the sun. Not every day at sea was peaceful. Sometimes, the stillness gave way to something sharper, the moment when two ships crossed paths, and a choice had to be made: fight, flee, or surrender. But pirate battles weren't always storms of cannon fire and swordplay. Often, they were games of strategy, intimidation, and timing, with victory won not by chaos, but by calm calculation. When a target ship was spotted, the pirate crew would spring into quiet motion. Cannons were primed but hidden, muskets prepared, and powder kept dry in sealed barrels. Not a word wasted. Just a rhythm, like a heartbeat, practiced hands, and quiet resolve. The black flag would rise slowly up the mast, flapping in the wind like a warning whispered through the clouds. Each flag carried a message. A skull, a dagger, an hourglass, all symbols designed not just to frighten, but to speak. They said, "Surrender now, or face what follows." Many times, those flags alone were enough. Merchant captains, seeing the dark sails and fearsome emblems, chose not to fight. They would lower their own flag and stop their ship, offering no resistance. To pirates, this was often the best outcome: no blood, no loss, just a peaceful claim of treasure. When battles did happen, they were brief and decisive. A few cannon blasts, a boarding party with drawn blades, and shouts that echoed across the water. But always, the pirates aimed to end the fight quickly, to avoid destroying the very ship they hoped to claim. They were not out for senseless violence, they were hunters of opportunity, and destruction meant lost profit. And yet, even in the quiet tension of these encounters, there was an understanding. Pirates weren't bound by the rules of empires or the codes of navies, but they had their own sense of fairness. Some crews let defeated sailors go free. Others took only the cargo and left the ship unharmed, floating back into the blue. Once the encounter ended, and the enemy ship drifted away or fell behind, the tension would fade like mist in the sun. The cannons would be covered again. The sails would be adjusted. And the pirates, with their new bounty secured, would laugh, rest, and return to the rhythm of the sea. The ocean, too, would return to calm. The waves would whisper once more. The sun would paint golden light across the deck. And for a while, all would be still again, the danger gone, the day won, and the wind gently carrying the ship toward its next adventure. Now, as you close your eyes and imagine those distant sails vanishing on the horizon, let the echoes of cannon fire fade. Let the waves return to their gentle hush. And let your breath follow the calm tide of the sea. Because for pirates, as in dreams, even tension gives way to peace. Chapter 8: Shore Leave and Pirate Havens. The anchor drops with a soft splash. The sails fold like tired wings. And at last, after weeks at sea, the pirate ship drifts gently toward the shore, where palms sway, waves curl upon warm sand, and the sweet scent of tropical air welcomes the weary crew. Every pirate, no matter how fierce or free, needed rest. After long weeks aboard creaking decks and endless seas, the call of land was too strong to resist. And so, from time to time, pirates left behind their ship's wooden world to step onto the soft earth of island havens, places of laughter, repair, and brief but beautiful peace. There were a few such places, hidden jewels in the vast blue. Each had its own rhythm, its own story. There was Tortuga, off the coast of what is now Haiti. A wild, buzzing island known for its rum, music, and freedom. Pirates from every corner of the sea gathered there, Spanish, French, English, bound not by nation, but by the tide. The air was thick with the smell of spice and smoke, and the streets were alive with the sounds of old songs and new tales. Further east lay Nassau, on New Providence Island in the Bahamas, once a quiet settlement. It became the most infamous pirate republic. A place where captains came not to conquer, but to rest. The harbors were packed with ships of every size, their sails patched with years of battles and storms. And in the taverns, pirates drank, laughed, and traded rumors of Spanish treasure and haunted shores. Far across the ocean, some sailed even to Madagascar, off the coast of Africa, where hidden bays and quiet beaches became homes for those who sought escape. There, among lush jungles and peaceful villages, pirates found something rarer than gold: stillness. Life on land was different, slower, warmer, and filled with color. Boots sank into soft sand instead of creaking planks. Instead of the wind's howl, there was birdsong and the laughter of people gathered under thatched roofs. The salty sweat of sea days gave way to cool washes in fresh spring water. Clothes were mended, sails repaired, wounds tended. In the taverns, by flickering lantern light, pirates shared stories of storms survived, battles fought, and treasures glimpsed. Some tales were true. Most were not. But all were told with wide eyes and full mugs, as the rum flowed and music danced in the air. They spoke many tongues, wore many flags, and came from many lands. But on these islands, they were simply pirates, sailors without kings, wandering souls who had found for a time a place to belong. They traded goods with local villagers, offered coin for fresh fruit and eggs, and sometimes formed friendships, or even families, with those who lived on the islands year-round. Children laughed on the beaches. Women sold woven fabrics. And old pirates sat in the shade, smoking pipes and watching the sea they once ruled. These rare days ashore were not just about rest, they were about remembering. Remembering that life could be soft. That the world was wide. That even for those who lived by the blade, there could be moments of warmth and wonder. As the sun dipped low over palm trees and the sky turned rose and gold, pirates watched the waves, knowing the sea would call again. But for tonight, their swords were set aside. Their hammocks hung between trees. And their dreams were filled not with storms or sails, but with stillness. So as you close your eyes and drift to sleep, imagine those island nights, the warm sand underfoot, the soft hum of music in the distance, the slow curling of waves on the shore. The ship waits patiently in the harbor, but tonight, the pirates rest beneath the stars. Chapter 9: Food, Drink, and Daily Sustenance. The wind hums softly through the rigging, and the ship creaks in a slow, sleepy rhythm. Below deck, the scent of something warm drifts through the shadows, simple, salty, and comforting, as the crew gathers, one by one, for a moment of peace. Life aboard a pirate ship was many things: wild, dangerous, uncertain, but it was also deeply human, full of little routines that tethered the crew to comfort and survival. And nothing brought more quiet joy to a sailor than a warm meal after a long, cold night at sea. The pirate's diet was not elegant. It lacked spice and sweetness. But it was enough. Enough to fill the belly, fuel the body, and remind every man and woman aboard that they were still alive, still sailing, still together. Most meals began with hardtack, a tough, dry biscuit made from flour and water, baked until it could last for months. It was sometimes so hard it had to be soaked in broth or beer to soften. Pirates broke it with the backs of their knives or dipped it into stew until it gave way. Though bland, it was dependable, a constant companion in an uncertain world. Alongside hardtack, there was often salted meat, usually pork or beef, packed in barrels with layers of coarse salt. It was chewy, sometimes stringy, and always coated with a deep, briny taste. But when simmered in a pot, slowly over a low flame, it became tender, filling, and oddly satisfying. The crew sometimes caught fresh fish, tossed lines overboard, or set nets drifting in the moonlight. If lucky, a few silvery fish would be pulled in and roasted over a small fire in the ship's galley, a tight corner of the lower deck, with iron hooks, swinging pots, and a tiny hearth guarded from the wind. That galley, dark, warm, always smelling of salt and wood, was a kind of heart. It was where the cook worked with whatever was left in the stores: a few onions, a hunk of cheese, a pinch of dried herbs. He might stir together a thin soup or bake a pan of dumplings in iron pots, their lids covered in glowing coals. When the food was ready, pirates would gather, not in rows or by rank, but in a circle. Sitting on crates, hammocks, or cross-legged on the floor, they shared from bowls passed hand to hand. There were no silver spoons or linen cloths, just tin cups, wooden plates, and hands strong from the ropes. Rum, too, was part of the ritual. It burned the throat, warmed the chest, and eased the aches of salt and sun. On some nights, it was rationed carefully. On others, it flowed freely, in celebration or sorrow. But more than the food itself, it was the moment that mattered, this break in the day, this pause in the voyage. Pirates, hardened by wind and war, softened for a time. They told stories between bites. They laughed with mouths full. They toasted absent friends. And for just a little while, they were not outlaws or hunters, but family. Afterward, with full stomachs and calm hearts, they would drift back to their hammocks, the gentle roll of the sea rocking them into dreams. So now, imagine the clink of spoons and wooden bowls, the low murmur of conversation, the soft steam rising from a battered pot as a tired crew finds warmth in one another and in something as simple as a shared meal. That was food aboard a pirate ship, not rich, but real. Not fancy, but familiar. A little light in a long night. Chapter 10, Pirate Fashion and Appearance. The dawn light filters through the sails, casting shadows across the deck. A breeze flutters a loose bandana, and the sound of boots tapping on wood echoes softly in the morning hush. Pirates, one by one, rise to meet the day, not just with weapons, but with style. Clothing, to a pirate, was never just about protection from the sun or sea. It was armor, identity, and sometimes even a declaration. Far from the polished uniforms of naval officers, a pirate's attire was as wild and varied as the oceans they crossed. Yet, within the seeming disorder, there was a language of fashion, practical, powerful, and deeply personal. At the top of many heads sat the bandana, tied tight to keep sweat from dripping into the eyes during battle or sail work. These simple clothes, dyed in red, black, blue, or faded white, became a symbol of rebellion. For some, it was tied carefully each morning like a soldier's helmet. For others, it was tossed on loosely, worn soft from sun and salt. Around their waists were sashes, long and flowing, often brightly colored. These weren't just decorative, they served as belts, carrying daggers or pistols, sometimes pouches of coin or a lucky charm sewn into the folds. A red sash might signal danger, while a green one hinted at calm. Each color, each knot, carried a message. Jewelry, too, was more than treasure. Gold earrings were common, worn by men and women alike, believed by some to improve eyesight or serve as payment for a burial if lost at sea. Necklaces of bone, beads, or bits of shipwreck were worn for luck or memory. Rings carved from wood or stolen silver clinked on weathered fingers, each telling its own story. And then, of course, there were the eye patches, not always because of injury, as legend claims, but sometimes to keep one eye trained for darkness below deck. Practical, yes. But also iconic. A mark of mystery, strength, and survival. Pirates did not follow fashion, they created it. Torn coats from old uniforms, wide-brimmed hats feathered with stolen flair, breeches patched with fabric from every port. The pirate crew was a walking collage of the world, each member a canvas of their journey. Grooming, too, was its own ritual. Hair was often worn long, tied back in messy braids or wrapped in cloth. Beards were trimmed or left wild. Some rubbed salt water through their hair to keep it manageable, and others used bits of oil when they could. And then there were the tattoos, permanent stories inked into skin with crude tools and dark dyes. Anchors for loyalty. Swallows for safe passage. A mermaid for love lost. Some bore the names of ships, others cryptic symbols understood only by the wearer. These marks were badges of courage, reminders of home, or shields against fear. In the quiet of the morning, before sails were raised and the sea called again, pirates would dress themselves not in haste, but in ritual. A belt tightened with care. A scarf tied like a warrior's vow. A ring slipped onto a finger once bruised in battle. Each piece was a part of who they were and who they had become. So now, as you lie still, your own clothes folded nearby, imagine the gentle rustle of fabric, the soft clink of metal, and the feel of salt-washed cotton against sun-warmed skin. For pirates, fashion was never just about appearance. It was memory, meaning, and the freedom to be oneself, in every thread, every stitch, every shade. Chapter 11, Superstitions and Sea Lore. The moon cast silver across the waves, quiet as breath. Lanterns flicker gently on the swaying deck, and the night is filled with whispers, not of wind, but of stories. Stories of things unseen, of the old magic that lives just beneath the sea. To be a pirate was to live between worlds, land and ocean, freedom and danger, truth and tale. And when the stars shimmered above and the sea turned dark and deep, pirates turned to superstition, finding comfort in the unknown. They believed, deeply and fiercely, in omens. A red sunrise might mean bloodshed before nightfall. A dolphin leaping near the bow was a blessing. But if a bird, especially an albatross, was killed, misfortune would surely follow. Some swore that whistling on a ship would summon storms. Others never said the word drown aloud. Their world was full of signs, and they listened carefully. Many pirates kept lucky charms tucked away in their sashes or tied to their wrists. A carved coin. A scrap of cloth from a loved one. A shark's tooth on a string. Before battle or bad weather, some kissed their talisman. Others murmured quiet rituals, a hand brushed over a wooden rail, a whispered word to the waves. They spoke of ghost ships, doomed to sail forever, their crews lost in time. Some said they had seen them, glowing faintly in the fog, with sails torn and lanterns that burned blue. To cross paths with such a vessel was to meet your fate, unless you turned the ship around or offered a gift to the sea. And then there were the monsters. The kraken, with arms like towers, said to rise from the depths and drag ships beneath the waves. The sea serpent, as long as 3 masts, with eyes like lanterns and scales like armor. Few claimed to have fought them. Most had only heard the stories. But still, they believed, for the ocean was vast, and pirates knew better than most that it held secrets no map could mark. But the most treasured of all were the stories shared beneath the stars. On calm nights, when the work was done and the sea was soft, pirates would gather near the foremast or huddle below deck. Someone would start an old tale, passed from sailor to sailor, port to port. Perhaps about a cursed island where treasure whispered to those who listened. Or the tale of a woman who walked on waves, calling lost sailors home. Their voices were low, barely above the hush of the sea. The youngest pirates leaned in, wide-eyed, while the older ones sipped rum and watched the moon with quiet smiles. For in those moments, they were not just hunters or rebels, they were children of the sea, held in its great, mysterious arms. Some stories made them laugh. Others gave them pause. But all of them, every ghost, every monster, every omen, lived in their hearts like stars in a midnight sky. And so, as you close your eyes, let the sound of those whispered tales follow you. A lantern rocking in the dark. A voice soft with wonder. The gentle creak of wood and the sigh of the sea. For even the fiercest pirates, beneath their sashes and scars, believed in more than gold. They believed in magic, the kind that can only be heard when the world is quiet, and the ocean is listening. Chapter 12, Navigating the Open Waters. The sea stretches to the edge of the world, a gentle blanket of blue, rippling beneath the sun. The sails billow with the breeze. The ship moves forward slowly, steadily, guided not by roads or signs, but by the stars above and the wisdom of those who know how to listen to the sea. To sail the open ocean is to enter a world without boundaries. No landmarks. No street names. No guideposts. And yet, the pirates of old crossed these vast waters with remarkable purpose, carried by tools, instinct, and ancient knowledge passed from one sailor to the next. At the heart of every journey stood the navigator, the quiet mind behind the movement. With charts laid out in the dim glow of lanterns, he studied the shapes of distant coastlines, the depths of hidden reefs, the pull of the currents. He worked beside the helmsman, who stood at the ship's great wheel, steady hands on worn wood, eyes on the horizon. Together, they made decisions not from orders alone, but from wind, sky, and sea. There were instruments, too, simple but powerful. The compass, spinning gently in its brass ring, always pointed north. It was the pirate's most trusted companion. It didn't shout or sing, but it always told the truth. With it, the crew knew their direction, even when clouds hid the stars or storms blurred the world. The sextant, lifted to the eye, measured the height of the sun or the angle of a star. With careful observation, a navigator could find the ship's latitude, a fragile but vital clue to their place in the world. And of course, there were the stars. At night, when the sails glowed silver and the ocean turned to ink, pirates looked upward. The North Star, Polaris, held its place like a watchful eye in the sky. Sailors learned to read the constellations, Orion, Cassiopeia, the Southern Cross, not as stories, but as guides. The heavens were their map, ancient and constant. Maps, though precious, were not always accurate. Some were hand-drawn, others copied from captured ships. Edges were unfinished. Islands were misplaced. But still, they offered hope, a glimpse of where treasure might lie, or where safe harbor waited beyond the blue. And so the ship moved, not in haste, but with a gentle rhythm, like breathing. The sails adjusted slowly. The wheel turned with care. The ocean spoke in waves and whispers, and the pirates listened. Days passed without land. Just sky and sea, sunlight and starlight. But there was a kind of peace in it, a freedom in the vastness. No fences. No kings. Only the soft pull of the current and a dream of what might lie ahead. Below deck, the sounds of navigation were soft and familiar. The rustle of parchment. The quiet tick of a compass needle. The hushed voices of those plotting a course through silence. And above, the creak of the rigging. The flutter of canvas. The ship speaks its own language to the sea. So now, as your thoughts begin to drift, imagine standing at the helm of that ship. The stars above you. The sea below. A steady breeze against your face. No rush. No fear. Just the slow, certain journey forward. For pirates, sailing was not just movement, it was meditation, a path drawn by nature and time. And in that wide, watery world, they found direction. Chapter 13, Treasure and Booty. The lanterns flicker low. The ship rocks gently in the night. And somewhere, not far from sleep, a dream stirs, a dream of glittering gold, soft silks, and the rustle of coins in a worn leather pouch. To many, the word pirate conjures images of overflowing treasure chests, golden coins, and maps marked with a bold, red X. And while the truth was often simpler, quieter, the idea of treasure was always there, glimmering just beneath the surface. But pirates didn't only seek gold. No, the world of the sea offered many kinds of riches, barrels of spices, fragrant with cinnamon, pepper, and nutmeg, their scent enough to make a man dream of warm lands and long-forgotten kingdoms. Bolts of silk, smooth and shimmering, dyed in colors no storm could wash away. Sacks of sugar, sweet as a song, and rum, dark and rich, bottled in the bellies of merchant ships. These were the prizes that pirates hunted. Treasure often came not from buried chests, but from captured ships, vessels weighed down with goods bound for Europe, the Americas, or the Far East. With clever timing and a sharp eye, pirates intercepted these floating fortunes, and claimed them as their own. Sometimes the loot was stored in the hold, counted, and divided once the crew was safe. Other times, it was spent quickly, traded in port for fresh food, new sails, or a few nights of warmth and celebration. Many pirates lived for the moment. Their gold didn't sit in secret caves, it jingled in pockets, bought mugs of rum, or paid for a song in a smoky tavern. And yet, the stories of buried treasure endured. Tales were told of chests hidden on deserted islands, marked by crooked trees or carved stones. Some pirates, careful or clever, truly did hide their wealth, fearing betrayal or the long arm of the law. They may have drawn maps, half in code, or whispered instructions to a trusted friend. But more often, these tales grew with each telling, stretched by time, layered with magic. There were whispers of Captain Kidd's gold, never found. Of Blackbeard's secret stash, lost to the sea. Of Spanish galleons that sank with their holds full, their riches still waiting beneath the waves, guarded by coral and silence. For many pirates, the true treasure was not the coin itself, but the chase. The joy of the hunt. The thrill of a prize on the horizon. The sweet weight of something earned by wit and wind. It was freedom, not fortune, that made their hearts beat faster. And in quiet moments, lying in hammocks beneath the stars, pirates would still speak of treasure, even if they'd never seen it. They'd imagine the weight of gold in their hands, the glint of rubies, the silk of eastern robes. Not just for the riches themselves, but for the hope they carried, the dream of something more, something waiting just over the next wave. So now, as you settle into sleep, picture a treasure chest, not buried, but resting gently on a beach, under palm trees swaying in the moonlight. Inside it, coins that never clink too loudly. Jewels that glow softly. And dreams, the kind that sparkle, but never slip through your fingers. For in the hearts of pirates, treasure was always more than gold. It was wonderful. Chapter 14, The End of the Pirate's Day. The sky deepens to a dusky blue. The sun melts into the sea, casting golden ripples across the waves. One by one, the sails are lowered, the ship sighs in the cooling breeze, and the pirates prepare to rest. As day slipped into night, life aboard the pirate ship began to slow. The heat of the sun softened, the shouts and footsteps faded, and the sea, always moving, always breathing, rocked the ship with a gentle rhythm. The evening routine was a quiet ritual, as important as the hunt, as sacred as a map. The deck was swept once more. Ropes were coiled neatly, sails tied and trimmed. Buckets of seawater sloshed across the planks as hands worked by habit and moonlight. Tools were returned to their places. Cannons covered. Loose items secured. The ship was being tucked in, just like its crew. A night watch was chosen, 2 or 3 sailors who would remain awake while the others slept. They took their places with lanterns in hand, boots lit on the deck, eyes scanning the horizon. Their job was to listen for changes in the wind, to spot distant sails or storms, and to ensure the ship stayed steady through the long hours ahead. Below deck, in the flicker of lantern light, the rest of the crew gathered in quiet clusters. No longer pirates preparing for battle, they were now tired sailors in search of comfort. And so they did what sailors have always done at day's end, they told stories. Stories of close calls and clever tricks. Of ghost ships seen in fog. Of hidden coves full of treasure and laughter. And when the tales ran dry, they sang sea shanties, old songs with easy rhythms, passed down from ship to ship. Voices rose and fell like waves, harmonies imperfect but warm. Some clapped softly, others tapped on barrels or crates. The music didn't need to be loud. It was simply a way to say, we are still here. Together. Alive. Drifting under the stars. As the night deepened, the crew peeled away, one by one, to their sleeping quarters. Some stretched out in hammocks below deck, gently swaying with the ship. Others chose to sleep beneath the open sky, wrapped in old coats, their heads resting on coiled ropes. The stars above were endless, a shimmering map only the sea could read. The wind was a lullaby. The sails above whispered like mothers tucking in their children. Even the ship seemed to sleep, creaking softly as it floated through the velvet dark. And in that stillness, there was peace. No cannon fire. No distant sails. Just breathing, just the sea, just dreams. So now, as your own day comes to an end, imagine that quiet ship. The hush of the wind. The glow of a lantern swung gently. A final song fading into the dark. A sailor's sigh as he closes his eyes. Pirate's day is over. And the night belongs to rest. Chapter 15, The Legacy of Pirate Life. The sails are lowered. The sea is calm. A quiet ship rocks gently in the twilight, its stories etched into every timber, its memories carried on the wind. And though the crew is long gone, their voices still echo across the waves. The age of pirates, wild, wandering, and free, could not last forever. Time, as it always does, moved on. Empires grew stricter. Navies sailed stronger. The oceans, once open and lawless, became mapped, guarded, and claimed. Some pirates met their end at the edge of the rope, captured and tried, punished for the lives they had lived. Others were pardoned and given second chances in exchange for abandoning the sea. A few retired quietly, their names unknown, their gold spent in small towns where they were just another face at the market, another old sailor watching the tide. But even as their sails disappeared, their legends remained. They became more than men and women. They became stories. Tales were told of Blackbeard's final stand, his hair alight with slow-burning fuses. Of Bonnie and Mary Red, who dressed as men and fought like fire. Of Captain Kidd's gold, never found, always whispered about beneath the moon. These tales grew brighter with each telling. Real pirates, flawed and fierce, became heroes and ghosts, painted in storybooks and whispered through generations. And so, the pirate never truly vanished. He became the rogue with a heart of gold, sailing a ship called Liberty. She became the fearless captain who outsmarted kings and freed the forgotten. They became symbols of freedom, of wind in the hair and stars overhead. Of choosing one's own course, no matter the storm. In time, their voices moved from sea spray to cinema, from docks to dreams. Children dressed in bandanas. Flags flew over treehouses. And the idea of the pirate, wild, daring, free, found a home in the imagination of the world. And perhaps, that is the greatest treasure they ever left behind. So now, as your eyes begin to close, and your breath drifts like a ship on still water, let the legacy of the pirate carry you. Not just swords and storms, but freedom. Not just gold, but courage. Not just maps, but the courage to follow them, wherever they may lead. Let the final winds blow gently across your thoughts. Let the sails of your dreams billow. And know that somewhere, across the quiet sea of sleep, a lone ship still glides across the waves, no king to command it, no shore to bind it. Just stars above, wind behind, and the promise of adventure beyond the horizon. Good night, traveler of tides, and dreamer of sails.